Committee meeting to order for Monday, July 8th. Approve of the agenda, please. Councilor Norbury.
That the July 8th Policies and Priorities Committee meeting be agenda be approved as presented.
Seconder. Councilor Julich.
Hold this off of the chairs. It's the last.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Let's do it again. Adoption of minutes for June 10th, 2024. Policies and Priorities Committee meeting minutes. Recommendation, please. Councilor Noxana.
That the June 10th, 2024 Policies and Priorities Committee meeting minutes be adopted as presented.
Seconder. Councilor Clickash. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Any business arising from the minutes, council? Staff?
No.
Thank you. Reports, let's talk discussion for October 2024. Report dated July 8, 2024 from the Executive Assistant regarding let's talk discussion for October 2024. Recommendation? I make the recommendation the council receive this report for discussion. Seconder, Councilor Noxana. All in favor? Carried. So my thing is just a date. I think topics can be decided in a little bit later, but if we can just pick a date. I know it's a long ways out for council and staff, but this way it gives us an opportunity to make that invite to Northern Health. And it gives them enough time. Ms. Scott, is there anything that you know that's coming up in October at all? Like any? I can't think of anything, but I just want to confirm it.
No.
I'm going to make a suggestion that we look at October 23rd, which is a Wednesday. Any issues from council? Councillor Hoffman?
Thank you, Mayor. I was thinking the 16th or the 23rd, and I was also thinking that we can just make it a quarterly thing. Fourth Wednesday of every quarter that we have a Let's Talk ready to go. If we're supposed to do 4 of them a year, then can make it a normal thing where people know when it is and when it's going to be.
Yeah, we don't have to do 4 a year, but we have to do 2 for sure. We can do as many as up to 4, but we have to do 2. So that's kind of usually what we've been doing, is sticking with 2, but if council wants to do more, we can do more. And the reason I picked the 23rd is because it's after the Thanksgiving weekend. Councillor Julich?
Generally, I'm conflicted on Wednesdays. I can't find my other schedule right now, but I get that we've been doing it on Wednesdays, so that's kind of nice too, but yeah. So right now I would say no to the 23rd because I'm pretty sure I would get there, it would just be late.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Norbury?
Thank you, Mayor Kakalka. What about the 22nd then on a Tuesday? I mean, I've hosted events on Tuesdays and they seem to get some pretty decent turnout. Maybe we could get a little more people if we did it on Tuesday versus a Wednesday. Try a different day of the week, you know what I mean? We didn't have a great turnout last time. Maybe a different day of the week would be better, so.
Yep, I'm good with 22nd. Okay, I'll put a motion out that we have a Let's Talk on October 22nd, 2024. Need a seconder? Councillor Julich, any discussion? Call the question, all in favor? Carried. I guess, Ms. Scott, I imagine we should come up with topics probably early September, would be my guess.
Yes,
Okay.
please.
If we'll just try to remember to add that to an agenda. First meeting in September would be great.
Yep.
Councillor Norbury?
Thank you, Mayor Kakalka. Would it make sense to kind of treat this as a continuation of another meeting? And what I'm saying is, like last meeting, we had some, questions from the public, and, we're taking it back, we're gonna work on it. Would it make sense to do a brief review of this is what people were talking about last time, this is the progress that we've made so far, kind of like how we do with old business or new business, just so that if it's the same people in attendance, which it usually is, right? It usually is the same people. We can say, hey, we looked into this, and the first 5 minutes can almost be like a recap.
Yep. Yep.
Just a thought.
Yep, no, totally agree with you. I think it's a good idea. I think, we had the recap there with fire, things we were working on or looking forward to in the update. So I think it's worth doing the same kind of update and just kind of do that light discussion. So we can do that. And then we'll just add some topics to the first meeting in September. Is council good with that? Councillor Julik.
Have we ever put it out to the community to ask if there was something specific they wanted to talk about? Has that ever been anything that's been tried?
No, I think anything is open. We usually come forward with some information that we have, what we're working on or whatever. But let's talk is, any question comes from the floor. That's, the residents can ask anything they want.
Okay. No,
So
that,
yeah, it's not held to the topic of that night. It's wide open. And I believe we've seen that the last Let's Talk, there were some concerns and residents brought it forward. Okay. Moving on to Northeast BC Accessibility Committee update, report dated July 8, 2024 from the Director of Corporate Services regarding Northeast BC Accessibility Committee update. Recommendation. Councilor Noxana.
That council receives the Northeast BC Accessibility Committee report for information.
Seconder. Councilor Clickash. Discussion. Call the question. All in favor? Carried. Okay, moving on to Tumble Ridge Tourism Strategy. Report dated July 8, 2024 from the Chief Administrative Officer bringing the Tumble Ridge Tourism Strategy for Council's review. Recommendation. I'm going to put a recommendation on the floor that we just, actually just for information, and I'll explain it afterwards. But I'm going to move it that we just take it for information. Seconder, Councillor Norbury. Discussion. The reason I'm moving it for information, this is within our budget this year for it to be redone. So for us, if there's points that council wants to bring forward, we can bring it forward to discussion, but this is going to be something that's going to be worked on. Oops, sorry. Ms. Scott?
Yeah, we've applied for funding. I believe we've got funding, but the RFP to actually do this plan will be in 2025. Is correct? Sorry, I gave you misinformation. So this is scheduled for 2025. Yeah.
The reason I moved it for information was when I was in and talked, and no disrespect, but it was stated it was in there. But council have any other discussion? I guess, Ms. Scott, can we just get an update from staff? Just, I've went through it. Obviously we're redoing it. I thought it was in 2024, but hearing it's in 2025. Is there any concerns from staff within it besides that we're redoing it in 2025?
So I will ask the Director of Economic and Community Affairs, or Ms. Olson, to please respond to that.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Just to clarify on which strategies are being redone this year, the economic development strategy is being redone in 2024. We received funding for that. The tourism strategy is valid until 24, so we'll be looking at funding for a new strategy in 2025. Just for a general update, if it's okay, I'd just like to quickly read through the points and just give a few comments on the action items. So I kind of gave an overview in the memos that went along with the strategies. I know there's some points about the museum and developing a master plan. That one, the targets have not been met at this point, but advocacy continues, as you all know. They are pursuing small-scale projects, including a digital exhibition, which we just got some information on today. Bike Park has been an amazing success by the TRMBA. Pump tracks, skills park, and downhill trails are all open, with more plans to come. The Tourism Precinct Geointerpretive Center should be opening soon. Paving downtown and sidewalks will also enhance this as the years go on and those projects are completed. We also have the business facade grant available for downtown businesses to help revitalize the exterior of their buildings. We still have other large projects on the back burner, such as the spray park, which would also enhance the tourism precinct of downtown. Our operators continue to develop new product. We won the 2023 Sled Town Showdown, as it talks about snowmobiling in here. Unfortunately, last year we had a poor snow season, but yeah, just a few other notes that we're continuing to pursue the fiber internet, work with the province, numerous grants to assist with tourism planning. Geopark is coming up on their 10-year anniversary, so there is an exciting event planned next month. When it comes to sustainability, we've taken part in Destination BC's sustainability planning. We still have work to do, but it's on our list and will likely be part of the tourism plan. Dark Sky Reserves in progress. Health and Geoparks has happened and continues to develop. Marketing continues. Yeah, most of our downtown spaces are full right now. And for the trails, we've applied for the Tourism Growth Program grant, as council has also heard about, and are still waiting to hear to work on our destination management strategy. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any other discussion from council? Okay, gonna call the question. All in favor? Carried. Okay, 6.4, Investment Readiness and Economic Development Plan, report dated July 8, 2024, from the Chief Administrative Officer, bringing the Investment Readiness and Economic Development Plan for council's review. Recommendation? Councilor Norbury?
That council receives the Investment Readiness and Economic Development Plan overview for information.
Seconder? Councillor Clickash, discussion. Councillor Julik.
I had a couple of questions I wanted to ask if, so I would be voting against for information.
Any other discussion? So I'll just be honest, if council wants it for discussion, just be the first to your button, usually helps. Okay, so obviously councilor wants it for discussion, so I won't be voting in favor of this. Call the question, all in favor? Opposed? All the council and mayor are opposed, the motion is defeated. Councillor Julik.
So do I have to make a motion for discussion?
Please.
All right. The council receives the Investment Readiness and Economic Development Plan overview for discussion.
Seconder? Councillor Hoffman. Any discussion? Call the question, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Ms. Scott, can we get an overview from staff, please?
Yes, and so this is the one I had confused with the one previously. So this is the one where the RFP has gone out to update. But again, I'll ask the Director of Economic and Community Development to speak on it.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just kind of go through it like I did the tourism strategy, if that's good with everybody. So for action items, the economic development and investment capacity, the ECDEV assistant role has evolved significantly since this was created in 2017, rolled out in 2018. So there are now actually two positions available in the collective agreement. One is economic development assistant, and one is for the economic development marketing and design coordinator. Rural dividend ended in 2019, but we have applied and been successful on many more applications, including most recently the Rural Economic Diversification and Infrastructure Program, which we'll be using to fund the new ECDEV strategy, and the RFP went out last week. The Economic Development Advisory Panel was not something that was established as far as I know, but I think it's something that we can revisit during the creation of the new strategy. Reviews and policies and procedures is ongoing. There are a few that we'd like to revisit. Again, during the new strategy creation, I think a lot of this will come forward, and how we can streamline some processes and make the community more business friendly. We created a new website, the Invest Tumbler Ridge website. During COVID, we also created a special section for COVID-19 sports for businesses. We're currently on the fence about rebuilding the site just to make it more user-friendly, but again, waiting to see what comes out of the new strategy. All of our properties are listed online and available in print form as well. It's also mentioned in here the investment response team, which right now I would say is the ECDEV office plus other directors and staff and other stakeholders as needed, but I think that, again, that's something we can look at developing further. Continuing work on virtual worker attraction, where we have a digital nomads campaign, it's called, on a dedicated page on a website that specifically caters to virtual workers. Mining, we have a good relationship with the mining sector and service providers, which continues. Conferences as a destination that kind of got put on hold during the pandemic, but we still support Tumbler Ridge as a destination for smaller conferences, and I think that we're seeing more coming and being more interested in going to more remote locations such as ours. Co-working spaces, we've done a lot of research. It's going to need a strong community leader for it to be successful. The chamber has an interest in it. I'm not sure, as far as I know, that's on hold at this point, but it's definitely something that we're keeping in the back of our mind as time goes on. Pop-up shops are, again, something I think we could work, maybe doing something with our business licensing requirements and make a plan to support more pop-ups. Local businesses have shown interest, and they're really great at working together and supporting each other here. Marketing, we feel that everything we do, whether it looks like it's coming from tourism side or not, promotes the community as both a place to visit and to live. We've expanded our digital asset library by leaps and bounds with the support of the Northern BC Tourism Association and Destination BC content creation initiatives. We're currently working with a UMBC student exploring the socio-demographic and economic transitions occurring across Northern BC in order to support rural and small town readiness and transition, particularly in youth recruitment and retention. Healthcare, the district has a healthcare task force, as you know, and the EDO office is here to assist with any items that arise, including familiarization tours or local information. The workforce for the future, we've developed an Best Tumbler Ridge website, as I mentioned before, specifically for these initiatives. Looking at a revamp and rebuild possibly next year. We have the in-house capacity to do that now, so we just want to see what comes out of the new strategy before we make any moves on that. We changed our visitor guide to include a relocation guide, so now it's the Tumbler Ridge Visitor and Relocation Guide, so it has a special section to attract new residents. The infrastructure to accommodate growth. This is a big focus of our work plan for the coming years. The residential development plan RFP is up, and we're looking to work with local First Nations if there are collaboration opportunities, continuing to push for fiber internet, and again, using the Growing Communities Fund and the local government housing initiatives funding to support these development projects.
Perfect, thank you. Questions from council. Councillor Julik.
Yes, thank you, and I appreciate and it was in the strategic recommendations that I had some questions, so you did address the establishment of an economic development advisory panel, because, yeah, I hadn't heard of anything about that, so if that still comes up in the next report, then I think that would be good. The conference destination, yeah, I think that that's something we've talked about a lot. I can say that this weekend we had I heard there were some hiccups with technology, and so I wonder if that's something that we continue to if that's something that we continue to have a goal on, that we make sure that we actually have the ability here for folks to do that. They brought in their own, from what I could tell, they had their own kind of technical person there on site at the hotel, but it sounded like some of the rooms, and I get that that's not under our purview as council, but if we're going to sell it as a conference destination, I think that we need to make sure that the people within our community are able to knock it out of the park when people come, because if you're coming the extra distance, you want to make sure that that things are going to be working, whether it's us making sure that our spaces are good for that. Like, I know we had some hiccups with the mics or whatever at the community center. I also, when I was in the presentations, there was concern around, the person kept going in and out because our internet connection wasn't great, and that was also over at the hotel. And like I say, I get that these are just little bumps in the road, but if we're going to promote it, I feel like those are some things that we need to make sure we've ticked all the boxes on. The tracking youth leaving the community and encouraging their return, I'm thinking Ms. Olson probably talked about that, but I missed it or you used it as a different thing. But I think that that's amazing that if we could do that, because are they coming back? And this weekend at at the conference as well, there was a doctor, a resident who was from Fort St. John, and he grew up in Fort St. John, moved to the island, came back to Fort St. John to do his residency and stuff. So I think that just continues to show us that if they're raised in a community often, that they'll come back. So if we can, these are just things I'd like to highlight for the next one that's coming up. And then the medical and healthcare recruitment. I was just thinking, as I'm on the task force, we've never invited ECDEV to the meeting, and that maybe when we reviewing our terms and references, that maybe that's something we should add to that if that's within their scope. So, thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions from council? Councilor Norbury.
Not really a question towards our economic development officer, but comments to Councilor Julick's points. It could be something for us to invest in our own Starlink that we could move around, right? You see Starlinks in the back of people's trucks. We could easily have something that we can just pop outside of a conference center so we don't have to rely on their internet, because, I think it's difficult for us to go to a business and say, you need this for us. But we can just put it into ourselves, and we can have it. And we can take it down to the flatbed if we want to. We'd have to do there's a little bit of work there on who we lend it out to, but I think it's an option that's overcome. We can overcome. So just a comment. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilor Hoffman.
Thank you, Mayor. Maybe I'm a little more macro on this one, but as far as points go, I don't have any dispute. Like, Tumbler Ridge is a desirable place to live and work. I mean, we can absolutely promote that. Without the internet, do we have a target of an industry that we can promote for moving here that is supplemental to mining is fine, but that would be something different? This is coming from, we're going to go through a cycle of up and down of demand on the mining industry. That's just what's going to happen. And if we stay a 2,500-ish person town, we get hit like a ton of bricks anytime that goes down. Do we survive? Rough estimate, we need to quadruple in size before we can take a hit from a mining industry downturn. You can correct my numbers, but just going on the basis of just how much of our industry is 1,200 or so workers are directly or indirectly on the mine for the town. Just assuming mining stays the same, we need to grow a lot before we could take that hit. And that's just it. Do we have a growth strategy around that? Because right now we are pretty tight on residential space. We're pretty tight. It's great to have a conference, but do we even have the hotel room to hold a conference as things are going right now? We don't have the great control over broadband internet. So do we wait 3 years, 4 years, 8 years before we put in a general strategy? And please don't take this as criticism. I don't have an answer to these questions either, but I'm wondering if our approach, tourism's great. Tourism is not going to sustain an economy that's 2 hours out of the way, like an hour here and an hour back just to visit. That's not going to be, that can't be our bread and butter. We can't rely on that when there's downturns. So what I'm hoping to see is more than a 4 or 5 year plan, but more like a 20-year plan. Of course, going to be modified every few years. I get that. I'm not saying that that's the end goal, but right now it's not even worth building a house. Is it worth building an apartment structure? That I know less of. I don't know what the square footage cost is to build. But just in my own head, I was thinking you build a 50,000 square foot space with 50 units or so, or 60 units, whatever it is. Could we sell that to a developer to do with our current balance of single family homes versus maybe we can, or maybe we can combine it with some sort of townhouse structure with units above. Trying to get the ball rolling on actually making some more space in town for people to live and selling it on a more modern life, that quality of life thing that we have. I don't see how we do it without internet. Honestly, I just think we need to push that one really hard, whether that's one of the big boys or one of the third-party ones that float on those. But without that, I just don't see how we grow. I can say from experience, it is very nice if you can convince somebody that they can work online to live and work here. We can sell that. But without another industry or without that, I don't know how we grow to a point where we're able to absorb a hit from a mine shutdown or even pause. I've heard rumors of 6 months or so is how much we had left with the 2014 closures, and I don't want to be that close. I don't want people to feel they have to move because there's nothing else to do around here. So I'll stop now, but that's kind of where I am. I'd like to see a larger, more targeted plan for sort of what industry we'd be looking to supplement. And if there isn't one, if they just don't have the energy costs, then that's fine. Then let's focus we can't do it that way and we have to come up with a different way. But just waiting for other mines to open, I don't think that's our long-term interest. And I'm going to be blunt about it. I don't think tourism is going to float this town. It's great to have, it's nice, but you're not going to have an 80% of industry run through tourism here. I just don't see how that's physically possible with where we are and what the deal is. So I guess that's it. I would like to see what our future plans are, what are we going to try to develop, and if those aren't viable, what's our alternatives? Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Scott, is there anything within the RFP and such that we're looking for longevity in regards to questions from Councillor Hoffman?
Yes, and it is in the report from the Director of Economic and Community Development as well, under the review and update, where it says that the new economic development strategy will review previous plans' achievements and relevancy to adapt to changes, but it will also have two pathways. One is for when the resource sector is good and strong, and for another pathway for how we can prepare ourselves and look at other economic scenarios to help get us through. So it does say in there that there's two pathways that we want to make sure are included in the new plan.
Okay, thank you. And just when it comes to internet, I mean, maybe Councillor Norbury can just have a conversation or fill council in, but through the PRRD, that they do have a committee there, and we're slowly starting to work on adding internet to communities that do not have internet or Wi-Fi at this time. And with doing that, that will help us finish our loop, which will give us stronger internet. But these other ones have to happen first to bring in that infrastructure, and then we'll be tied into it. That's my understanding through the PRD, but also through the government, is how they explain it to me. Councillor Norbury?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Kakak. I do sit on the Rural Connectivity Committee for the PRRD. I'm not exactly sure of the name, but we do meet quarterly to discuss these things. And, they're bringing up opportunities to connect with organizations that are coming through developing internet, right? Like we had Rogers come in and they gave a presentation to us because they're building that line out, right? And we have a potential to get on the radar for them to help us out if TELUS isn't there. So that's definitely something happening. But to Councillor Hoffman's point, talking about a growth strategy, I think it's a good idea. Thankfully, the regional district's doing it. It's not specific to Tumbler Ridge, right? We're just a partner there, but hopefully we could see what they come up with. Hopefully some of it's applicable to us, because I did attend the little session they had here. Maybe they'll have a little Tumbler Ridge subsection for us, so we can garner some information from that as well, and yeah.
Yep. No, and it is a regional, so I mean, that's why they came up and did the open houses and stuff in all the communities. So I know we were late on attendance in Tumbler Ridge, but hopefully they'll add some information that we talk about around the table. So, any other discussion items from council? Okay. Moving on to downtown design guidelines, report dated July 8, 2024. From the Chief Administrative Officer, bringing the downtown design guidelines for council's review. Recommendation, Councillor Julich.
The council receives the downtown design guidelines for discussion.
Seconder, Councillor Noxana, all in favor? Carried. Councillor Julich.
So I went through the guidelines, and I appreciate the memorandums because it definitely encapsulated the big report. One of the things that stood out for me was celebrate local history and culture, including partnerships with Indigenous communities. And I think that we've not been really strong in that. What comes to mind is the art that was done by the Art Council, and there was some discussion around it being a totem pole and that not being on par, and so it just kind of died there. And so it's stuff like that that I would like to see not drop off, because they talked about it being a signpost. There was lots of discussion around it. Anyways, for me, I think that those are some of the things that we could do a little bit more with. And that's just the one thing that popped out. And I want to say that it must have been someplace else that I was reading that as well, but, because now I'm seeing that I don't have the notes that I thought I did. Oh, no, here it is. It's because it's in the actual report, but sorry, I'm not prepared to answer this question because, oh, age-friendly plan. I know some of the things that were in here, I know will happen when we get the sidewalk program, or the sidewalk stuff done. And I have a few different notes. Do you want me to just go
Yep.
through it or wait for
Let's-
somebody?
nope,
Okay,
nope.
so, the identity and character, I've got highlighted a vibrant recreation. Here, let me pick up my notes. The culture and art re-sign, the signpost. It feels to me when we get pushback, we stop the process instead of stopping the process, but then figuring things out. So from what I understand, that project is still sitting with the stuff, still sitting in a shed somewhere. And so we haven't gotten another solution built. And I'm not pointing fingers, I'm just saying I think that those are the things that would start off the identity and character, like the local art. I think we've done an amazing job when you look at the community center and the art that's on that and some of the other places downtown.
So it's just, when we talk about the signpost, so it's never been called, the previous term you used, but it's always been called
Yeah.
a signpost. It used to be a Roman walkway. It was removed due to rot in a log and it became a safety hazard, so it was removed and another log was purchased and then signs were done by a local artist, not the, art council. It was done by a local artist. When there was talk about reinstating the signpost, when the signpost was ordered, there was extra money left over, so when it was ordered, they decided to put stamped dinosaur prints in the main log. So when it first came up, there were some concerns from the geopark side, from the committee there, and then the Indigenous committee side of the geopark as well. I know we've reached out to West Moberly First Nations, Soto First Nations, McLeod Lake Indian Band. They don't seem to have an issue. McLeod Lake did come to town, went through it. They were looking for a couple things to be added to the signpost, which I feared it could have been dealt with fairly easy coming back to council to make sure it met. To me, they were looking for a marker that showed where McLeod Lake Indian Band would have been, Soto First Nations, West Moberly First Nations would be, what direction they would be, approximately mileage or kilometers. The concern that arose was come from Kelly Lake. So I have had discussions. Again, with DEA, we went around and met with most of the First Nations as a non-transactional meet and greet. You guys have sat in with West Moberly and that as well. The thing is we need to, and I have sat with Kelly Lake, but it needs to be a circle back, because how do you go forward with, for sure, two nations have sent support letters to go forward with the signpost. McLeod Lake was looking for a little add-on, which I don't believe our previous CEO had ever brought it forward to council, and that's previous to his term. But then we still have the Kelly Lake to deal with, and to me, I understand. So you got to think that you're dealing with some are action nations and some are non-treaty right now. They don't have a treaty at Kelly Lake, but to me, they're still our neighbors and they're still our Indigenous neighbors. So to me, Kelly Lake did come up. I never did meet with Kelly Lake at the signpost, but I met with McLeod Lake. So I don't think it's been left to the side. They're just the first meets were non-transactional, so I'm not looking for that from our First Nation neighbors and partners. I have reached out with Soto and West Moberly. They are very busy at this time. I know our EA has probably reached out to to McLeod Lake probably 10 or 15 times with very little turnaround. They're busy with some industry partnerships and moving forward with some of their industry partnerships. So again, I won't say we're on the back burner, but I mean, this isn't a priority on their side. So it's definitely isn't left. We just got to, take our time and work through it. My other comment there is hearing from the geopark. So there's some, I'd say, concerns there as well in regards to what is it that look for when we talk about Indigenous tourism. So you have, I'm sorry, I'm not sure what they call them. Almost like the Osta cruisers. What do they call that on internet? Sorry.
Fanters?
No. Influencer? Thank you. Influencers come to the community and see that and post that as a negative thing. So, I think we need to look at that. And to me, if it's going to be done with a signpost, and to me, I've had those light conversations with Chief Wilson and Chief Paquette, is have them do it. right? So have them come up, help us install it, so it's being done by the First Nations because of the concern of the log.
Yeah, you have way more history on this than I do. Those are the pieces for me, like, it's not on our fuel list, and so it's for me that I'm like, okay, so are we just kind of in limbo? And so when I talk to somebody within the community and they're like, well, it's just dead in the water and that's all you know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, so I think it's about that communication piece as council that that we even have the information that, yeah, we're still working on it. The mayor's been in touch with the different nations and we're working with it. And if the Geopark was one of the organizations that had some strong objections to it, reaching back out to them and seeing what's next. So that's, and so for me, it's not, when I bring this stuff up, it's not necessarily thought of as a criticism, it's that second set of eyes. Because to me, when you have people in a department and they've looked at it 17 times or 20 times or 50 times, and then stuff pops out at them, like for me, because it's maybe something that I've had a conversation with somebody. So that was one of the things I thought about when I saw about the art and stuff. The other part was age-friendly plans. I'm not sure if we have anything specific that we've done on these things. So that was something later into the report, they show pictures of the benches and stuff so that when seniors are walking and stuff, we don't necessarily have that friendly of a downtown space in that regard. If they were walking there, there's not a lot of benches and stuff along the way, and I know some of that might change with the sidewalk plan. So some of these questions are more around where do we as council come and say, okay, well, what about this? When are we in the kitchen and when are we not?
Yeah, I don't say it's the kitchen, it's called budget.
Okay.
If we want things added, I'll be honest, I think the accessibility, Northeast BC Accessibility Committee updates too, and when we talk about that, don't get me wrong, they're not talking about benches and stuff like that, but there'll be a process there, I believe, as well, because they're looking at that as well from definitely from the PRRD side, as other things like you mentioned, benches, and obviously, we need to deal with our cement first.
Yes.
It'd be pretty tough to add benches to an unlevel sidewalk, and that's not throwing the bus, the staff under the bus. That was a step that was missed that we're working through, and obviously, it'd be nice to see us start in 2024, but I'd be realistic, just like I was at Let's Talk, I see this as a 2025 scenario. So my thing when it comes to benches and stuff like that, I think that's what you'll see as they do this stuff is what can they do? Maybe other businesses will come forward. I know we had the Lions Club come forward, looking at installing some benches along Mackenzie Way and stuff. So I think we'll see more and more of that. Again, it's on the downtown core, but I know a few businesses have added tables downtown and stuff like that. So I think there's always that too, right? And then with this accessibility committee report, I think you got to be, I think they'll look at it, and even from staff side, when the sidewalks get redone, is there spots that we can put benches that do not hinder the accessibility of people coming downtown because of the depth and out of the sidewalk. But it would be budgetary so that we can get involved for sure.
Okay, and partner with surrounding Indigenous communities to explore ways to showcase and celebrate local Indigenous culture and history. I appreciate that. I also feel like we have a lot of Indigenous families within our community that aren't necessarily, they're not from Treaty 8. And I don't know what the procedures would be around that or what would be acceptable around that, but I wonder if that's something that we could explore as well, to celebrate the multiple types of Indigenous citizens that we have. We have Inuit, we have Métis, and lots of First Nations from other First Nations areas within Canada. So I think that to celebrate those as a whole, I would love to see something like that. Maybe it's not appropriate, I'm not sure, but.
No, I think you're, not to cut you off, but I think it is,
Yeah.
we obviously, there was a Indigenous celebration day that was held in Tumble-Ridge. Obviously, it wasn't by the district of Tumble-Ridge, it was held by the Geopark. Maybe we need to have some partnership, but they had Indigenous Day celebrations, and it doesn't specify whether that's Treaty 8, but it's Indigenous Day.
Yeah.
So it's anybody, and it's not just Indigenous people, but that, maybe we need to, give direction in the next budget that we want to see partnership. I don't think that's a bad thing.
Yeah, I would love to see that. I loved the different options for crosswalks. I like our crosswalks. These ones were kind of cool. I don't know what it would be to maybe spruce them up a little bit more than what we just have our little old lines. The parking and loading, there was some reason I like. Oh, no, I have no idea where I highlighted that, but I had a thought when I was reading it, sorry. And the signage and wayfinding, I think, is amazing. What I do think about is coming in from 52 East, for example, there's some old signs at that corner at the first entrance into the district of Tumbler Ridge. And I wonder where our bylaws are around that. Like if signs get older, do we ask folks to take them down? If the business is no longer in, like I know we've talked about sign audits, but I don't know that we've done that and if that's part of it, because those are private, but is that not on public land? That's just something I didn't know.
Yeah.
And then even the faded signs at the Ball Diamonds that were that might be up for renewal as well.
Yeah, I think when you talk about the ball diamonds, I think we're still waiting for a report to come
Yes.
forward, so I think that'll capture some of that. When we talk about company signs out on the side, that would be Modi. If it's personal companies out advertising along the highways, that's under Modi.
So right there on that property, like that, as soon as you come into Tumbler Ridge though, so you're coming in, I just am surprised that it would be Modi because it's on Tumbler Ridge property, like by Mesa Place there. So. okay.
Imagine that get captured in our sign audit,
All right, that's what I was kind of wondering.
because I would think they'd have to have permission if it's on the DTR land to have signs, and I don't believe we give it, so.
Okay, and it looks like that's all the highlights. Oh, the bicycle racks. I don't know how many bicycle racks we have. I'm looking at Councillor Noxana because she's a bike rider, so I have no idea what that looks like. So there's that, and then the public art. I know we do pretty well at the public art. I just wonder if we have policy on how often we would change that out, how long it stays up, that kind of thing. And then the lighting. I think that we have great lighting except for the lighting that BC Hydro owns along Mackenzie and Monkman. Is that something that we could follow up with since we've upgraded all our other lights in town?
Yeah, and we have, I'm not sure if staff will be able to speak to it. I can't remember the date or the year we were given, but it has been pushed and asked about multiple times for them to switch out their lighting on the ones they own. There was conversation, I'm not sure if staff prepared to answer that, Ms. Scott. So we're talking about the lights that they own, so it'll be on Mackenzie and Monkman. We went and changed all of our lights to LED, and through BC Hydro was the comment, so when we did it, BC Hydro was supposed to do theirs, and they didn't, but they were talking, I can't remember if it was last year at the UBCM or if it was actually pre to that. I believe it might have been the previous council that gave a date, and it wasn't a quick turnaround from their side. I want to tell you it was 8 years or 10 years that they weren't looking at, an immediate change. As they go through them, they'll change them. But I'm not sure if staff doesn't have that information, if we could just maybe look it up and send it out to council.
Yeah, I don't have that information, so I have made a note of that.
Okay, thank you. It was the same thing as we met with BC Hydro. I can't remember when I told council. Council was updated that I met with them, with the intern CEO, talking in regards again to adding the lights on the back side of some of the posts that they own, like they did previously for the trailways. And the gentleman was supposed to look into it and get back and give. I know he sent Ms. Torval some information for us to look into it and send it back to him. And I imagine they're just working through those details. So hopefully we'll be able to do that, is add back on and then see where our darkness is on our accessibility trails.
And do we pay for the power that is burned by those lights?
I don't know. I don't believe so. Ms. Scott?
I don't know. Again, that's something I can find out and let you know.
Because I just know
Thank
the LEDs are just that much more efficient, so.
Yep. Yeah, that part I'm not sure. My BC Hydro side would be paying for theirs, but I'm not sure about the extra ones on the backside.
Right, gotcha.
It might be captured by them as well because it's on their power.
Okay, that's all I had highlighted in my report, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Anything else from council in regards to the downtown, downtown design guidelines? Good. The Housing Needs Assessment Overview, report dated July 8, 2024, from Chief Administrative Officer, bringing the Housing Needs Assessment for council's review. Recommendation. Councillor Julik.
That council receives the housing needs assessment overview for discussion.
Seconder, Councillor Hoffman. All in favor? Carried. Counselor Julick?
Again, the memorandum is awesome because it definitely lumps everything together fairly good. So I was surprised in the population trends. Not so much surprised, but the future housing needs that the report projects an increase in housing demand driven by population growth to 2335 by 2028. So an additional 93 housing units needed. So part of what I'm wondering is, recently a friend of ours is looking for a place to buy here in the community, and there's a lot of space. When you go to the PRD, there's an amazing website that Miss Olson had guided me to, and it shows, I'm thinking specifically about a piece of land on next to the highway. I want to call it Canuso Avenue, but I don't think it is. Anyways, it's a whole, like, it's just all trees right now, but like, so some of that stuff is owned, but how, like, so if people own that, and we have a bylaw where people are supposed to like, develop property, is what I understood when I read the bylaw, and I could have misunderstood it. We still have a lot of property, like lots, that I'm assuming people bought as prospective lots. And so how do we encourage people to develop those lots or put them up for sale? Because I wonder, like, so this friend of mine who's looking at coming in, you know, that's part of his concern is how do you find it? You have to pay however much money to do a land title search and that kind of thing. So when I see 93 housing units, and I just wonder how we help that process.
Yeah, go to Ms. Scott, but I know there's multiple lots that have been purchased back in the day. And they did have a section on there, but I can't remember where that is on that. I believe it was removed. But there was a thing when they bought this that they had to build in a certain amount of time, and I can't remember all the ins and outs of that. I wasn't on council at the time, so. But there is multiple parcels that were purchased that have never been developed. Now, whether that's up, I'm sorry, I can't remember all the streets, but there's actually a roundabout, the whole middle, those are all parcels for houses. Same one on the backside on this side of the highway. But there's multiple of those, and I'm not sure, like, I know, you know, obviously probably bought by residents or people that used to live here, and I'm not sure what they said, I'm not sure. Ms. Scott, if you would have any information there, or if staff would have information that's in the room?
I can tell you that in addition to the RFP that we put out last week for the economic growth strategy, we also put out an RFP for a residential development plan. And so part of the what we're asking people to quote on for the residential development plan is looking at what the housing needs assessment said we needed, and coming up with some actionable plans for how we meet those targets. So that is something that is identified in the RFP that we want to be included in the residential development plan.
So is it possible to find out about like those, I'm assuming people were, like they were looking to develop them, but they aren't. Is that something that council wants to follow up on? And if that's in there, should we be, you know, telling them, okay, if you have this, you need to sell it, or you need to develop it, or?
Yeah, I'm not sure if Ms. Scott would have that information. She might have to come back to council with it, and like I said, I can't remember if it was removed. I honestly can't remember that, but can't even remember the term they used on it, but Ms. Scott?
Yeah, so again, I'm making a note of that so I can find out information and let everybody know.
Okay, thank you.
That works for me.
And the same thing, I mean, if there's lots up there that they're privately owned, I'm pretty sure people can search it if they're looking to buy lots. I mean, you just have to deal with the private owner.
It's just, it costs money every time they go to search it up.
Councillor Hoffman?
Thank you, Mayor. Very much appreciate the memorandum. One of the things that stood out for me is developing a housing inventory database, which I think, Councillor Julick, that could be part of what you're discussing right now. I think this could be very useful over time, and I don't think it would take a lot of effort to maintain until there's a real growth spurt of some kind. And answering questions. The ratio between, I guess, single-family homes and everything else in town, I also found that a very interesting thing, because I think that gives us a chance to work on things other than single-family homes, which will have an easier time to be developed, since they are not as cost-intensive per square foot to do. So I would like to see something on that. And speaking of the lots, I'm wondering if there's something that we can do with taxation on those, that even if there is no timeline, that just leaving them like that, that we tax it at a higher rate, to basically say, look, either develop it or get rid of it. And I would, to even take it further, I wouldn't have a problem with the city buying it back at a reasonable rate to change the terms of what those lots are going forward. I don't know if there's anything that we can do with that specifically for an undeveloped lot, but I'd like that question answered. Thank you.
Ms. Scott, you have any information on that?
I know there are options to local governments to charge a speculation tax or a vacancy tax. So those are options that we can look into and explore if council wants to.
Thank you. Councillor Noxana?
Thank you. I just had a question on the upcoming requirements. The interim report is due January 1st, so is the residential report coming up considered the interim report, or will there be a separate one coming out?
Ms. Scott?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
In the upcoming requirements, it has a need for an interim housing needs report, January 1st, so would you mentioned
The new
residential-
government mandate.
Yeah, so with the new housing regulations, even though our housing needs assessment is relatively new, there are 3 addendums that it will need to have added to it. And what those are is mentioned in the report too. So yes, that is something that was included in the residential development plan RFP, was to provide the addendums that we need to our housing needs assessment in order to meet those deadlines. Yeah.
Thank you.
That's it. Councillor Clickash?
Yes, Your Worship, you can put a frontage tax on,
Yep.
on this to, and that helps a little bit to get development moving. You can only charge so much though. But even if it's an extra $500 a year, maybe it makes a difference in how these people react. The other thing is, there was about 80 lots left in town. Most of them are owned by 2 different companies. One's Tech, and the other one's, and I don't know if they've transferred these to Canuma, and maybe Canuma is going to build on them. The other ones are by a company from Vancouver. Can't remember their name now. But anyway, he had 23 lots or something that I think he sold some of them, and he was trying to wholesale them at $20,000 a piece or something. So there's opportunities here. Some of them are going to cost a lot more to develop than others because of water problems, and some of them require retaining walls in the back, which is going to look at another $80,000 for proper retaining wall in some spots on these lots. But there are lots available. There's lots on my street. You can buy 3 or 4 of them right now. And I'll find the name of the guy to buy them from, because I got it at home.
Thank you for that. Councillor Norbury?
Thank you, Mayor Kukalka. On the subject of the intent to develop, I think, I tried to look through our policies and don't have enough time to really dig in to see if we have it, but I think it would be appropriate that we have some sort of intent to develop for empty lots. Because, yeah, we do have affordable land for sale, and it is not, at this point in time, it's really hamstringing us if they're not going to develop in like 2-4 years. And it's not uncommon, from what I understand, to have that sort of policy in place. So it's definitely something we should be looking into. Thank you.
No, thank you for that. I think if given the opportunity for the CO to go back and get that information, like I said, can't remember that with the maybe Council Clickash would remember what it was called, but I can't remember. But there used to be stipulations on the properties that were sold. They had so much time to build or whatever, and I know what happened is the same thing out by the light or the heavy industrial as well. But maybe it needs to be relooked at, but I can't remember if it was removed or not. Councillor Clickash?
Well, when these properties were sold, there was a stipulation, the council made a stipulation that they had to be built on within a couple of years. And most of the area in town here and the housing area was the same. The only thing is, somebody took that to court, and the court said you can't do that kind of thing. So that's when it all ended.
There you go. Couldn't remember, that's why I said it. I remember them hearing that there was something on the stipulation. So, Counselor Julick.
So if, when Ms. Scott comes back with some information, if we wanted to look at the speculation tax or frontage tax, we could make a motion at that point to have ready for our next budget season?
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah, we can give that direction to get that information at any time we want.
okay,
We can wait for the information to come back and then just give that direction to have a look at that for taxation for 2025.
Okay.
And what the implications are.
okay. So we don't need to do a motion right now, is what you're saying? 'cause we
I
can
would
do
not
that
give her an
PPC.
opportunity to
Just
bring it
give, yeah, okay, perfect.
So. Any other discussion? Okay, take adjournment. Counselor Noxena,
That the July 8th, 2024 Policies and Priorities Committee meeting be adjourned.
seconder. Counselor Norberry, all in favor? Carried.